has to do with fairness in dealing with citizens, be it in relation to trial, in relation to arrests, in relation to trial, arrests, prosecution, or even in dealing with the interest, even civil interests of citizens.
Okay. Okay. Barrister Matthew, this right, like he said, it's wide, and it encompasses a lot of this issues, you know, as you go on from arrest to trial to, you know, even the final stage of trials. Okay. What are the ingredients that form this fundamental right, and that, you know, if infringed, you know, it will affect the citizen or whoever is involved?
The wideness of fundamental right can be streamlined under two main principles.
Okay.
Natural justice, and principle of natural justice, and also the principle of the altering party, impartiality and natural justice. Now, let the other person be heard. In the principle of natural justice, it means that a man cannot be a judge in his own case.
Okay.
So where, for example, you are having a dispute with another person, and you set up a committee, or you yourself presided over as a judge, it has affected the integrity of right to fair hearing.
Okay.
Now, the second one is that let the other party be put on notice, which we call all the altering party. It means that when you have an issue or any contention against another person, you must notify that person that this my grievance is against you. Where you go and execute a judgment or a sanction without the knowledge of that person, has affected the integrity of human rights. Its biblical instinct or the theological origin of that is mostly traced to when God was about punishing Adam and Eve for their sin. He says that, where Adam, where are you? He would have just sanctioned Adam because he knows everything. But God in his divine nature decided to avail him the right to defend himself. And then Adam started defending. So these are principally some of the main summary about fundamental rights.
Okay, so we can
Fair
say
hearing, I mean.
Okay, so we can say actually that this principle was actually gotten from the Bible, and, you know, it has its basis from, you know, even God, who knows all things, decided to give man fair hearing, and so it must also be abided by, even, you know, in our own day-to-day dealings with people. Okay, Barrister Ahile, if these principles, that these two principles, the audium autorem partem and the natural justice partem principle, has been breached, what redress, you know, do I have, you know, or how do I seek a redress for this?
Yeah, usually it tends to vitiate or nullify the process, be it administrative or be it judicial process.
Okay.
A violation of any of these principles of fair hearing vitiates or invalidates the process of the administration action or the judicial process.
Okay.
For instance, if someone is accused, he's working in a place, he's accused of having committed a particular act, and then without being heard, maybe he's queried. Before he answers the query, he's
terminated.
He's sanctioned. That can be set aside because the principle of fair hearing, he was not given an opportunity to bring in a defense or to be heard as to what led to that act, or whether in fact the person committed the act.
Okay. All right. Barrister Matthew, you want to add something on that?
Yeah, just to add that it vitiates everything, no matter a proceeding, no matter how well conducted a proceeding is. Once the elements of fair hearing has been breached, it nullifies the proceeding. So a well-conducted case, without putting the other person in notice, and it equally involve itself in the proceedings of the court. When you lead a witness, you do not allow the other party the right to cross-examine it. As little as that, it will affect the integrity of fair hearing, and so it has the capacity of nullifying the whole proceeding, no matter how well conducted.
Wow. So that means that issue of fair hearing cannot be overlooked and cannot, be swept under the carpet in,
Very
ensuring that
fundamental.
justice
Very
is done.
fundamental.
Yeah. So, lastly, Barrister Ihile, on this matter, the issue of fair hearing, is it just only in matters that are in court and administrative matters? Can it apply to even matters, you get involved in a matter on even just between two persons, in your environment, even in the home, between children? Do we apply these principles, or generally we should just restrict it to, court matters and administrative matters?
Well, you see, the origin is God himself.
Okay.
So if we are children of God, we should be like him, we should work like him, we should act like him. So where something happens in the house, and then you come back and you just look at one of your children and say, I know you are the one that did this thing. You are the one that has a character of doing this kind of thing. Without first hearing from the child. It will not even be the child, by the way. By the time maybe you descend, you pounce on the child, and after finishing the beating, the child cries. And then the other guy comes and says, Mommy, he's not the one that did this thing. It's not Benji that did, it's Sam. then you even be embarrassed.
Yeah.
So it is good. Sometimes we are very hasty and impatient to give an opportunity to someone to be heard. It may be a spouse, it may be a friend, it may be a child, it may be a sibling. It is always good to avail the person the opportunity of being heard. You'll be shocked what actually transpired, and you will save yourself some embarrassment.
Thank you very much. All right, so we'll delve straight to our topic this evening: foreign funding on political issues, political parties, the legal issues. Barrister Matthew, how are political parties funded in Nigeria?
There are many sorts of political parties
in
terms of funding, which include the payment of the dues by members, which also includes donation, free donation from members. It will also include sanctions and penalties for members who violated the laws of the political party. So that could equally serve as one of their sources of funding. They could equally make a public appeal for people that may decide so. Then individuals, if well-meaning individuals are impressed by the performance of a political party in Nigeria, they can equally support it and say that I am interested, I am pleased and impressed by the performance of this political party, and so I want to help them. That could also be termed as a source of funding.
Okay, just before I leave that question, you have mentioned that individuals can actually, fund the political party. To what extent?
To the extent of their own volition, not that they are interested. They can, just like an individual can be charitable to another organization. If he feels that political party, a particular political party is engaging in activities that promote national interests, it can equally do that. But once it does that, it has an obligation also to notify, the political party has an obligation to notify INEC that certain individual has done so, especially depending on the amount of the money. Yes.
Is there a limit to the amount?
Yeah, there are limits to the amount. I think the Electoral Act may reference to about 500 million or 500. The stuff, I don't get the figure precisely.
Between 550 and 500 million.
Yeah, something about that amount.
Okay. Thank you very much. Barrister Ahili, if is foreign funding allowed in Nigeria? Does our law provide for foreign funding of political parties? He has said individuals can fund, they can raise funding from dues, penalties, can foreign organizations, also be part of the source of funding for political parties in Nigeria?
Yes, this is it's not a very straightforward issue, but there are some requirements. Generally, the Constitution prohibits the holding or possession of funds outside Nigeria for political parties. The Constitution also provides that where a political party receives funds from outside of Nigeria, it should not hold the funds but transfer such funds to INEC within 21 days of receipt of the funds.
Okay.
Then the Electoral Act now goes further to so then, or alternatively, they could get an auditor that will, a professional auditor that will audit the accounts and all. So there's no direct prohibition of receiving of funds from outside of Nigeria.
Okay.
The Electoral Act went further to make provision for sanction against any political party that receives funds and kept it without transferring to INEC.
Okay.
So there's no direct prohibition of funds coming into political parties from outside of Nigeria.
Okay. All right. Barrister Matthew, you maybe say something on that, and then you also add, and if there are prohibitions, why are there prohibitions for foreign funding? But just maybe you could add something on.
Yeah, like Ahile has said, let me add on his position. The provision of the Constitution and the provision of the Electoral Act have two distinct applications as far as foreign funding is concerned.
Okay.
The Constitution from Section 225, sub 3, 4, 5, and 6
Okay.
regulates the issue that has to do with receiving of foreign funding or having a foreign asset by political party.
Okay.
225, paragraph 3, A, B, and C prohibits a political party from having any property outside Nigeria.
Okay.
Even if it has any property outside Nigeria as a political party, it is expected to comply with the provision of sub 6, which is 225, paragraph 6. That means that it must be given an account of that money, the source of the funding. It must allow INEC to supervise it, to ensure that the source of the funding is legitimate. Now, going there now, the Electoral Act, on the other hand, make a prohibition, okay, of political funding and penalizes it if it breaches Section 225 3A, which says that you should not have it. But 3.4 provide a condition upon which when you have that money, it will become a legitimate source. So it is one thing to have foreign funds, but once, if you have not complied with transferring the money or the asset within 21 days to INEC, it still commits, it's an offense. So that's why Section 87 and 85 of the Electoral Act, 85 of the Electoral are going to penalize the amount by saying that the political party will be penalized by the paying of sum of 500 million or 50 million, something of that nature. You know, so these are the penalties that are accrued to it. Now, adding to that, the other question you asked that has to do why the prohibition. Yes. The origin, the prohibition is mostly started after the Second World War.
Okay.
Before the First World War, I mean during the First World War. You know, in 1917, when Lenin, in the former defunct USSR, were forming the idea of communism. So they were able to see how they could form communist parties in other countries, especially most of the Central European countries. So they were sending money. If there's another party, let the party of that country have the funding of communism. So communism are funding you in Finland, communism are funding you in Hungary. Now, after that also, Hitler equally started doing the same, supporting countries that are promoting Nazism. Now, these are some of the issues that the League of Nations and also after 1945, the United Declaration of Nations come to the issue that in propounding the doctrine of sovereignty, states should be able to ensure that they don't have any foreign influence in their political situation. So one of the reasons is to maintain the sovereignty and political integrity of a nation. Another is to prohibit the stronger nation from dominating over the bigger nation, and also to track illicit funding. Sometimes through political activities, you will find out that some people will be engaging in illicit funding. That was why in 1993, the Transparency International was formed to tackle corruption and some of those instances. You can also see another reason for it is to ensure that intimidation and toppling of governments by a stronger nation is reduced. Most of the coups in Africa were product that were political assassination and coup that happened during the decolonization processes are product of what? Foreign funding. So most international committee came to agree that we have to prohibit those instances. So that is why it is, but it must be noted, there are some countries that allow foreign funding.
Okay.
Yes, some countries like Iceland, Namibia in Africa, Angola, and some of them allow foreign funding. So if you can have access to a particular country that you have a good political relationship with, they can survive it now. For example, now the fears of Nigeria in the interest with respect to Labour is that one, Labour in the UK is a conservative and opposition party. So can Labour Party in UK, just assuming, fund the Labour Party in Nigeria if it comply with those constitutions? That's a question for another day.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, we've talked about the penalty of for foreign funding, where a political party has been funded and then it didn't comply with the regulations, you know, prescribed in the Constitution. You said it is the payment of 500,000 naira as penalty. Beyond that, can a candidate in the political party be penalized for foreign funding? Not the political party now, but the candidate, you know, whether it is state, whether it is federal, you know, at the federal level, or at, you know, the various houses of representatives, can they be penalized?
The provision of the law does not penalize candidates, it penalizes political party.
Okay.
If you look at section 85 of the Electoral Act, that deals with the penalty for a particular party that breaches section 225(3)(a) to C of the Constitution, that prohibit having foreign asset or foreign money being sent to you. If you breach that Constitution, is the political party. The operative of there is the political party and not an individual. Why is it not an individual? Political party is a legal entity that can sue and be sued. So once you have it in that ground, you can penalize them. Okay. That is why the law contemplates. So going to an individual is not stipulated by the law.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, two things on the issue of prohibition and the penalty. Okay. On prohibition, one of the reasons is the fear of insecurity, terrorism. Lately, we are all aware of this threat of insecurity, where we have international terror groups that are operating across international borders. So if foreign funding is allowed, they could hide under this and send money to the terror groups in other countries across nations. So that's that. And then the issue of the penalty for not complying with the regulation of, as it relates to foreign funding, we just discussed and the right to fair hearing. One of the attributes of the right to fair hearing is that a person cannot be punished for an offense except that offense is codified in a written law and the punishment thereof prescribed. Here in section 85 of the Electoral Act, the punishment is a fine of at least 5 million naira. So it cannot be outside of what is prescribed in the law. Once that happens, it will be contrary to fair hearing and it will be a nullity. So the punishment is clear. Fine, which will be at least 5 million. It can even be 100 million or 1 billion, but not less than 5 million. And it does not mention disqualification of any candidate. And so a candidate cannot be disqualified because there's no law making provision for that.
Okay.
In fact, just to add to it, the maxim noli penal sine lege, that means no penalty. Okay, no law, no penalty. So where, just like the Bible says, where there's no transgression,
where there is no
sin, where there's no sin, there's no transgression. So if there is no particular prohibition that mention candidate, you resort to other provisions of the punishment.
All right, just to follow up on that, of recent, you know, there's been issues on nullifying the candidature of Peter Obi of the Labour Party on the issue of foreign funding and all of that, so this clarifies the issue that his candidature cannot be nullified because he has not breached any provision of the law. All right, thank you very much. Yes, sorry, back to you, Barrister Matthew. When you're talking of foreigners, can Nigerians in diaspora be referred to as foreigners?
It depends on the import.
Okay.
There are Nigerian citizens abroad could not be termed as foreigners.
Okay.
For the purpose of performing their national duties or civic responsibilities.
Okay.
Nigerian citizens enjoy two privileges. There are Nigerian citizens that are under the diplomatic protection of Nigeria as citizens of Nigeria.
Okay.
There are other Nigerian citizens that are having dual citizenship.
Okay.
So those that are having dual citizenship also enjoy the protection of Nigeria, but to some limited extent. They could be termed foreigners when they want to declare for a particular office. If I want to run for the governor of Plateau State, okay, or for the president of Nigeria, if I have a Canadian or Australian citizenship, one of the conditions is I must denounce so. It's a most of the time it's a global practice. That's why you see the president of Israel denounce his Californian citizenship before running for the president of Israel. So you find out that these are some of the international best practices. So they could be bid for the purpose of participating in an election. They are not foreigners.
Okay.
They are not foreigners. If we say they are foreigners, their money is also foreign fund. That's what I was trying to say. So that's virtually what my understanding about it.
Okay. Barrister Ahile, you seem to you want to add something on that?
Yes, I say sometimes we are ridiculed by our leaders. You remember there was a time a petition was written by some Nigerians in America,
yes,
and the deputy speaker of the House of Reps, who coincidentally is our man from Plateau State, refused to take the petition. That how can people outside of Nigeria be writing a petition? And that's embarrassing, because these are Nigerians that before then the government had been pleading with them to come and invest in Nigeria. You are telling them to come home. They have the right to come and vote in Nigeria. Maybe their parents are in Nigeria and all of that. And then you are saying you cannot receive a petition from them. It's rather embarrassing.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll be going on a short break now. When we come back, we'll continue on the discuss. Stay with us.
Echo TV International, a lifestyle Christian television station, driving a mandate of reaching the world with the gospel of Christ through an all-inclusive approach in our content generation, production, and broadcasting of same. Enjoy Christian movies and drama, live events, talk shows and interviews, reality TV, kiddies shows, music videos, documentaries, relationships, family, arts and entertainment, politics, government, current affairs, business and finance, sermons, youth and teens, health, women, and more. Only on Echo Television International. Echo Television International is live 24/7, preaching the message of salvation and truth to the world. Pray for Echo TV. Support Echo TV. Be part of Echo TV. Keep watching Echo Television International, the winning station.
You're welcome back to the show. This is Lifeline if you're just joining us. We have been discussing the topic, foreign funding of political parties, the legal issues. And we have trashed quite a number of issues. We'll just continue from where we stopped. Barrister Matthew, we were talking about the penalty for foreign funding of political parties. The penalty is prescribed by the Electoral Act 2020. Will you say the penalty is adequate, considering the reasons why such restrictions were placed on issues of foreign funding?
I am okay with the penalty.
Okay.
The only problem I'm having is that the law, especially the Electoral Act, has to be very specific about foreign funding.
Okay.
How to specify, it's not elaborate enough. The Constitution is more elaborate on how foreign funding can be regularized as a proper legitimate source of income that belongs to political parties. But the Electoral Act, which is the specific legislation that governs that aspect, was only punitive. So for a law, even in filing charges, one of the law is that not only the punishment section, but the description of the offense should be there. So it should be able to be elaborate to state, just like the Constitution says, where a political party failed to remit the money within a specific time that is specified by the Constitution is non-compliance that attracts certain sanctions. But 85 just went to say that why a political party default in complying with the provision of Section 225A, B through C can be sanctioned for 5 million. And the same thing where it has a asset outside Nigeria or all those things is not enough. It should be able to, also it has the capacity, even in the interpretation section 152 of the Electoral Act. Check there. Do you see anything like foreign funding? You can't see anything like funding. So these are some of the things that it ought to have addressed. If the opportunity comes, they should address that. This development is an eye-opener that there's a lacuna in that aspect of the law, and so it should inspire policy formulation and also legal redress legislatively.
Okay. Barrister Healy, before you add on that, does that mean, because from this explanation it shows that the Constitution prescribed what should be done, and then the Electoral Act prescribed the penalty, does that fly in our law? Should have the Constitution prescribe what should be done and also the penalty? Is that a lacuna that should be looked into in future amendments?
Yes, I think that here it's not expressly provided, but it's impliedly provided, because what is contained in the Constitution has been adopted by the Electoral Act.
Okay.
It should go further to make it more clearer than just adopting the Constitution.
Okay.
And then another thing that needs to be looked at is the definition of foreign funding or funds from outside of Nigeria. Now, consider a situation where a Nigerian who may not even have dual citizenship is resident in the US. He is even a member of a particular party, say APC. So, by the very nature of being a member, he is entitled to payment of dues.
Yes.
If he sends his dues, will it be regarded as foreign funding? If he decides to make a contribution, will it be regarded as foreign funding? So that's what ought to be looked into too, so that it is made clearer.
Okay.
To my mind, I do not think that Nigerians who are outside of Nigeria sending funds to their political parties back home should amount to foreign funding, but that is not clearly provided, and as it is, it will now be left to the court to interpret what it entails, whether that contributions to political parties by Nigerians who are resident in other countries will also constitute foreign funding.
Okay, Barrister Matthew, do you want to say something on that too?
Yeah, not much, but just to still emphasize that in foreign funding, we should be able to categorize certain type of people. Like the issue of the politicians living abroad, the payment of their dues, their status. Those with dual citizenship, their money could be foreign, but it may equally become illegal if one of the countries, the laws of that country say that they should not participate in a political party of a country.
Okay.
So that is where the limitation should come. Now, those that are having their name registered but are not political party members, okay, they have the right also to support a political party of their choice, and that will not amount to foreign funding that is prohibitive. If you are a Nigerian now, you are participating in your civil responsibility, you have a right to vote. Remember, I say in the two categories, we have Nigerians who have their name in the voters register, but they are there in US. So during election, they may decide to come. But if they have something that they want to support a particular individual or a particular party, they can do. That was the spirit behind the call for independent candidature. That whenever you have a political candidate that is independent, people that are not even political party members, they can do. But one of the arguments against that is that it must be able to distinguish natural support from natural person and corporate entity. That is why you see foreign funding is prohibited by companies, because some companies have their corporate headquarters in another country, so they are subsidiary in Nigeria, and that's why in the memo association of a political company, we will see the prohibitive section saying that this company shall not donate any fund to a political party. So these are some of the issues. Julius Berger cannot give a Labour Party, APC, PDP 5 naira. Once they do that, they have contravened the provision of the law. So these are some of the addition I want to add.
Thank you very much. The phone lines will be open, so you can call in to make your comments and contributions to the discourse this evening. Yes, you mentioned something that Nigerians who are abroad, you know, can participate in political activities. Does that mean that Nigerians in diaspora can vote? You know, considering the coming election, you know, 2023 elections by the corner, can Nigerians abroad vote?
They can vote, depending on two contexts. One, if a Nigerian is abroad, is already a member of a registered political party, but is resident there, he has his voter card, he can fly back to Nigeria and vote on the day of election. So that will not constitute diaspora voting. Now, if that person is not a registered member of a political party, does not have his name in the voters register in Nigeria, he cannot fly back to vote. And Nigerian diaspora voting is not recognized by Nigerian political architecture. Because in countries like Kenya and some, you find out that the INEC, or the Kenya, they call them Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission, they have this set office at the embassies of Kenya all over the world. So the embassy will now say that you are participating in this election. I think one of the European countries equally do the same. They have their embassies, and in all the countries they have it, so that their members can come and register and vote
at the embassy.
Yes, but that election is limited in diaspora voting. Mostly is limited to the presidential election in some countries like Kenya, like the one they just did now, William Ruto versus Odinga. Most embassies voted separately. But in some other countries, it's federal election. That's where you have the National Assembly, House of Representatives. It does not run down to state election, so they don't participate in diaspora voting. And some people, their reason is based on the complexities, shortage of staff, technical deficits, and most of those issues. So that's how it is done.
Barrister Ahile, do you want to add anything on that? Will you say our laws are inadequate on that issue of voting, of not allowing diaspora voting?
Well, maybe not just our laws, but also our capacity to handle some of these issues. When we are battling with conducting election on the soil of Nigeria, then how do we effectively conduct election, credible, fair and fair election in foreign lands? And but to add to what he has just said, generally the requirement for voting for even those of us that are on Nigerian soil is that, first of all, you are 18 years and above. You have reached the age of capacity to register, and then you are a registered voter. So it's the same requirement for Nigerians who are outside of the country. And then there's no voting by proxy. You must be there physically present to vote. It is not online, so it cannot be done any other place other than on the soil of Nigeria.
Okay.
So Nigerians who are here or who are outside will have to go to their own polling unit. Just like on the day of the election, everyone will have to go to his own polling unit where he registered and has a voter's card to vote. It cannot be otherwise for Nigerians who are in other countries.
Okay. Barrister Matthew, having said this, do you think that Nigerians are willing in coming 2023 elections to fly back to Nigeria to vote? Given the security situation, will they be, willing to stick, their necks for this nation?
I believe they are willing to fly back and vote.
Okay.
The social milieu international is clearly shown. Remember, the background to this discussion was that certain individuals in diaspora pledged and inaugurated a committee to raise funds for Peter Obi.
Okay.
The raising of that fund is not only to give him for his campaign, but also to facilitate logistics regarding taking Nigerians that will come vote. Nigerians have been coming to vote.
Okay.
And looking at the situation at home, Nigeria is approaching a pariah state. So the collective nationalist instincts of Nigeria, the patriotic instinct of Nigeria globally is getting aflame. So people want to redeem the image of Nigeria. There are other silent laborers that are even encouraging foreigners to come and vote. So the stake is at high. I know of people that we've been discussing with sometime. You will find out that they are there, but the soul of Nigeria is what they are crying for. So the tendency of people coming to vote there is going. The issue of insecurity will not deter Nigerians. Let me be honest with you. Any ploy, and that's why we need to resort to spiritual intervention, divine intervention by God. Because the contention now is the power of the good ones that are trying to see that the unity of Nigeria is sustained against all odds. There are other bad elements that are also trying to see how they can be used to frustrate the election. But we trust God that at the end, the victory of good will prevail over that of evil. So a lot of Nigerians are determined to come on board. I have never seen from international arena the determination of Nigerians to come and salvage their country from political decadence that is going on now. What is it that the dollar is unfriendly to Nigerians abroad? Before you used to send money through Western Union money transfer, the charges would be few. But now, look at dollar. So if you are living abroad, and one of the advantage of diaspora diplomacy that Africans are enjoying is because the remittances that comes from Africa, it helps in development. I really say something that we are wooing them to come for what? To invest in the country. Now, if I can work for something that I can spend 2 naira in US to settle my bill, then I can come to my country and spend almost 5 times more to you. What is the essence of me working there as a greener pasture to come also and waste my money, or to get my money wasted in the valley of poverty? And this is not what we are talking about. So the consequence is there. Economically, Nigerians diaspora are not happy. Diplomatically, just recently, I don't know whether you saw the video that was going viral in Kenya and in Italy. They are telling Nigerians that they are monkey. They should leave their land. They are invading them. So psychologically, Nigerians want to see that. What is it that these people have that we don't have? In fact, we must put all out. Let me tell you one thing historically. That was what happened with the Jews. There was a time after the First World War, the German persecuted the Jews. The Spanish have persecuted. All the European countries were saying that, no, these Jews, look like Nigerians. So they were persecuting them, that they are the cause of our poverty, they are the cause of the Jews are shrewd, Jews were 419, just like the way they were addressing Nigerians now. So it was in the time of history. So when they now found out that Hazel and the rest told them that we need to go back to Zion. That's why the idea of Zionism came into being. And so when after the First World War, They recommended Uganda for the Jews to come and settle. They said no. Their forefather told them there. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had their ancestral home in Palestine. So they moved, they galvanized themselves through ship, air. Even those in Ethiopia, the Falashas, all of them came that were coming to our land. So that is the spirit that God is using in this end time to galvanize Nigerians all over the world. That we cannot be in another foreign country where we'll be stigmatized like the Jews of old, where we'll be looked down upon, where we'll be in our competence, where we are marginalized, we are segregated. We want to come and build this home. And I'm telling you, by the grace of God, we shall see the reflection of that reality in 2023, God's willing.
Amen. Amen. Barrister Ahili, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I want to add that for people who are determined, nothing can deter them, not insecurity. I remember in 2019 we were campaigning with one governorship candidate, and in the face of insecurity, we'll go to places and come back sometimes around 3 a.m.
Wow.
I remember one evening there's a particular road that was notorious for attacks, and we went, just 4 of us in the car. We went to one village 40 kilometers away from the town. The road was terribly bad. We went and came back past 12 midnight, and the courage was there. So it is the same thing. Where there is determination, nothing can be deterrence. The insecurity is there, yes, it's real, yet people are determined to see that there is a change in Nigeria. And that change can only be done by participating, active participation in the electoral process. In fact, it would be good to say in the governance process, because it's actually the process of governance. And this is like a chance that we cannot allow to slide by, and we remain the same.
Thank you very much. Before we go from the show, do you have a final word?
Yes, my final word for Nigerians is that 2023 is another opportunity that we have to salvage this country from political decay and to ensure that national unity and integrity of Nigeria is protected and sustained. It is an opportunity for us that will come for us to decide the true divine destiny that God has for Nigeria. We cannot pray alone, we have to act. It is something that we must be conscious about, we must be determined to ensure that Nigeria will be better than what it is today. And my prayer, like I say everywhere, is that may this present situation we are experiencing be the last worst thing that will happen to Nigeria and Nigerians. So I pray that 2023, God will give us the right leader, a man after his heart, that will do his will for Nigeria, irrespective of his religion.
Thank you very much. Barrister Ahili, final words?
Yeah, for me, I would say that in 2015, there was need for change of government, and the government changed. And the paramount reason was insecurity. Well, for those of us who are adults who were knowledgeable then and we are still here, it is for us to judge for ourselves whether we have felt better off or we are worse off. And then we'll also judge whether we'll go back to PDP or we'll vote APC or we'll look for an alternative. It is all within our path to take that decision. So it's left to us. If we want to go back to PDP, we'll go. If we want to stay here, we'll stay. If we want to move forward, we'll move. But we have to be active in participation. Thank you.
All right. That's much we can take on the show this evening. Before we go, just to encourage us, the Bible says many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers them from them all. So the issue of insecurity, like we said, should not deter us. Let's do what we ought to do and see how God is going to deliver Nigeria in 2023 via our voting and our participation in the elections. I am Olaniyon Victoria Yemisi, your anchor on this show, and we'll meet you same time next week. Thank you and God bless.